Yo, what's up boys? It's Betta-ah here with my SIPHON TRICKSTER League starter for Settlers of Kalguur. I played SIPHON in 3.24, which this guide is based off of to get started and managed to clear everything with juiced mapping strategies, T17s, endgame bossing, and it really did take me by surprise. I have tested the build multiple times and put as much information together to the best of my knowledge, so if it's not perfect, I'm sorry that you're sorry. The current footage is in campaign gear that I was able to clear up to T10 maps. With as little as 15 chaos, we will upgrade some of our gear to be more comfortable until red maps, then further invest an extra 50 to around about 100 chaos depending on demand or day to switch to chaos inoculation for our late red mapping. I'll have an update video each day detailing my experience and progression for you to follow. This build is intended to be played in softcore trade that's designed for speed mapping, efficiency, fun, and without breaking the bank while efficiently getting through the campaign. It's a self-attack based build where SIPHON automatically targets enemies within your screen's view and sometimes off screen that culls all of the enemies so you can just focus on your positioning and not aiming. To scale the damage, we stack up power charges, critical strike chance, up to 600% multiplier, as much flat added damage to attacks via Wrath Aura, spell damage which also applies to attacks, and then we further scaled it with more damage multipliers from our supports, skill tree, and Trickster's Ascendancy. Trickster is the perfect choice here, giving early freeze plus chill immunity along with sustain, easily capping spell suppression, and large amounts of evasion rating, which we scale with the Grace Aura. Some cheap early uniques are needed from yellow maps that's easily obtained, and much later in endgame it will be an all unique build. However, don't let this discourage you from playing this absolute beast of a build, but more on that later. Before I continue, consider subscribing to my channel, drop a follow on Twitch as I am live daily, and should you choose this as your starter and struggle, do not hesitate to ask for help in my community Discord or on stream. Pros are that the build easily levels through the acts and progresses maps really well considering it's a wonder, and they typically need good investments to feel comfortable, but not this build. It's simple, fun, a relaxed playstyle, capped spell suppression is easily obtainable with high evade chance allowing for comfortable content clearing, aside from the occasional death when evade fails though. The league mechanics should be a breeze to do, however I cannot confirm it will destroy it just yet. For the cons, we are very vulnerable to physical hits when our evade chance fails. As it's a starter, we don't immediately mount bosses either, and some of the later uniques such as Ralakesh's boots could be potentially super expensive. So for this league, the build overall has received huge buffs with some minor balance into the late game. So let's take a look at them. SIPHON has a little less mana cost early on, so early sustain is even easier now, not that it was even an issue though, and we've gained 15% extra base attack speed increase, making it even faster to attack, which is huge. Instead of using the 1 mastery for spell damage applying to attacks, it now inherently also applies at 150% value from the original 100% in the mastery, giving us even more damage now. These also apply to the Vol version. Another thing to note is that all ones will now have a higher base critical strike chance and attack speed, increasing our damage potential even further, especially early on through the acts. For our CR setup, Rage will grant 30% more spell damage with the Helmet Ravenous Passion. However, Berserk won't be used as it got nerfed, but I will still experiment with it as I progress and update you all each day. Grace has also lost 1000 evasion, however, with the new bases we should easily have more than we could previously achieve in terms of our evade chance and energy shield pool. Otherwise, nothing else drastically changed for the build, so you don't need to worry if it's bait. I can reassure you it's not. Moving on to the POB, which you can find down below in the description, I have got leveling trees all the way from Act 1 to doing your normal lab, then to Cruel Lab, your early respec along with your early mapping as well that you do. And then underneath the notes section, I've got detailed notes for you to follow on along with, all the way from Act 1 right up until when you respec to CI. And then probably by then you can follow along with my update videos to get a better grasp on what you should do thereafter, which is from around about day 4 realistically. Alright, so moving on to how you'll be progressing through the acts. Early in Act 1, you'll be using Freezing Pulse or Stormblast Mine, and then using Spark to get through the rest of the act. Also, do note that you need to sell as many magic items as you can, so you'll be able to afford getting the necessary gems for switching to Power Siphon in Act 2. And also, please do remember to keep any hatred, anger, or woe essences so you can slam it on wand upgrades as you progress. And then if you do have any open prefixes on your wand, your gloves, or any of your rings, or even your amulets, you should try and craft on flat added damage, or get any ones that do already have flat added damage, as they will help you progress through the acts much quicker. Other than that, in terms of the playstyle, pretty much what you're going to be doing is placing a ballista, shooting Power Siphon by yourself, and then once again placing ballista, shooting Power Siphon yourself, and so it's repeated. And then for bosses, you'll just slap on Sniper's Mark, place 3 ballistas with Flame Wall in front, and just blast the boss away. You must just make sure that all of your projectiles and the ballista's projectiles are going through the flame wall, otherwise they won't benefit from the additional fire damage that's gained from it. And then also, one last quick thing to note is that you need to do the Golden Handjob quest in the crypt in Act 2 in order to get your other 1 skill point, as the bandits only now give 1 skill point by themselves by killing all of them. Alright, and then that is pretty much it. All you need to do is just do your lab for 1 step ahead for freeze and chill immunity, and then from there on, you'll just pretty much blast your way through the acts while looking for wand and gear upgrades, while crafting any missing resistances or damage if possible. Once you have made your way into Act 10 and you have killed Katava, now will be the time to respec. And now you may be wondering, why in the hell are we taking these nodes over here? And that's because we need the tree to be connected in order to respec all 14 of these nodes over here, so that way we can transition the build to our early mapping setup. The reason why you will be respecing just before going into your early maps is because you'll be getting much needed spell suppression just to help out with the spells early on, and the extra reservation efficiency, so that way you can fit in your grace aura, and then also picking up these 1 nodes over here for the additional accuracy and attack speed that they provide us with. I do also just quickly want to note that you do not have to get any gear upgrades in that. Pretty much all that you want to do is just make sure that you have crafted resistance on all of your gear and that, and then you can directly jump straight into maps and get to farming, so you can switch to the yellow map setup. Once you have acquired around about 15, at most 20 chaos, then you can upgrade to getting a better wand, which is Piscator's, for the high critical strike chance and attacks per second. And then the Ghastly Theater shield. This shield is really good early on, as it allows us to absorb up to 1000 physical damage, and along with that it also gives us a 100% chance to avoid bleeding. And then when our Aegis is disabled after we've taken 1000 physical damage, we gain some extra attack speed, critical strike chance, and nearby enemies are blinded. And if I do remember correctly, it's after 3 seconds that it's restored, so you don't have to worry about it being down for too long. And then for your helmets and your body armor, your rings and that, it's pretty much just resistances and life wherever you can fit it in. Do remember that getting any flat added damage on the rings is pretty beneficial. Other than that, our gloves is Dodre's tenure, and the reason why we're going to be using these is for the 100% increase to spell damage. This will give us an additional, I think it's about 20% damage, because of the inherent spell damage is applied to attacks that we gain from using our Power Siphon. Now, the most expensive thing is using the Fury Valve. This hardly depends on the supply and demand, but they do drop regularly, and you can probably pick up one for easily 10 chaos, maybe a little bit more, depends on the day. But yeah, this amulet gives us 2 additional projectiles, making our speed and our clear much better than having PS. And in doing so, we will be dropping our PS nodes over here and acquiring the additional spell suppression chance over here by instinct. And then, of course, a 5-link armor. This just enables us to socket in our increased critical damage. And then with this, you should try your very best to acquire a Vol Power Siphon. This is so that when you encounter like really big packs of enemies, you can just double tap it and literally it just levels the entire screen. It is so much fun. Moving on to our CR Red Maps transition, you should have at least 10 refund points, and then you're pretty much good to go just to change the skill tree. And then for your items, we'll still be using a Piscatus. With our shield, we're going to be swapping it for any shield that's got as high amount of spell damage as possible, along with maybe anything that you may be missing. And it should have energy shield on it, just to make sure that our ES pool is pulled up just a little bit higher. And then for the helmet is to use a Ravenous Passion. This will give us 30% more spell damage. However, I'm not too sure how it's going to work because the POB has not been updated in terms of the skill gems and everything. So we can't correctly calculate it at the moment, but that is fine because underneath the configuration, I've already added the Power Siphon buff over here and also the Grace nerf to show a realistic standpoint of how the build kind of looks in this form. The reason why we're using Ravenous Passion is so that Rage grants spell damage instead of attack damage. This way we can benefit from it, and it also gives us much needed strength along with a little bit of armor and energy shield. And then for the body armor, pretty much just need one that's got high, like really high evasion and really high energy shield and maybe some resistances in that. And then for the implicits, you should try and get Wrath and Critical Strike multi for attack damage. This does help us out a lot. The reason why you should have high evasion rating is because of our Ascendancy node, Escape Artist, which gives us 1 to maximum energy shield per 6 evasion rating on body armor. So say for instance, if you only have 600 evasion rating, that's 100 to maximum energy shield. Whereas in this instance, because we've got 1200 at least on ours, that means we're getting around about 220 additional energy shield. And I do also just want to note that all of the bases are being increased in terms of the flat values, so you can expect to get much higher ones than what I am showing in the POB over here. And then moving on to our gloves, which is the most important thing in terms of damage. We're going to be using a Thunder Fist. I expect these to be pretty much 100 chaos early on, maybe even more. It really does depend on the supply and demand and which other builds are using them. I cannot promise that they will be cheap, but this is only realistically to be used once you're getting into later red maps, which does give a huge bump in damage. And then for the boots is just movement speed, some resistance, and that is it. We'll still be using the Fury Valve amulet, except this time we'll be allocating overcharge for the additional power charge that we gain from the skill tree. This enables us to have up to 6 power charges now, which does give us a little bit more critical strike chance and more critical strike multiplier. As you can see, we're currently on 584%. In your left ring slot, this is very important. You must have Chevron's Revelation. It does enable us to sustain our mana and also gives a huge chunk to maximum energy shield. So our energy shield pool can be at least above 3.5k, so it feels a bit more comfortable while mapping. With this ring, you cannot recharge or regenerate energy shield, so you have to rely on attacking enemies, which is why we take Ghost Reaver in order for us to leech, and then the instant leech node as well just makes it a little bit more comfortable for us. And then for your other ring, pretty much anything that's got high resistances and flat added damage to attacks is helpful, and maybe even some mana. And the same thing goes for the belt, which should be a heavy belt in order to meet strength requirements. And then in terms of your flasks, you should be running a Quicksilver, Quartz, Jade, Granite, and Silver, and try and get the implicits used when charges reach full. I do know that baubles can no longer be bought from vendors, so they might be a little bit expensive. However, if you are running the Searing Exarch, they should relatively drop pretty often, so you shouldn't have to worry about putting those on your flasks. And then in the skill tree, we will use just one jewel socket to get corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. This is just because corrupted blood is pretty deadly on us and it does do a lot of damage. Alright, last but not least, I did mention earlier in the video that this will be an all unique build, and this is pretty much going to be our endgame goal, is to have this set up right here. I will have a link down below in the description and inside the notes of the leveling POB for you, should you be a juicer and would like to see. However, I do just want to note that because of the changes to Call to Arms and Rage and everything, it's not going to be the same, and this is why I did not actually include it originally as a part of the League Starter Guide and that, because I will be working on it and posting those update videos for you to follow along with. Alright, and that is it for the build guide. Do just remember to go through the notes while you level and your transitions and that, just to make everything a lot easier for you. And should you have any questions, do pop into my Discord or my live streams. I will have the links down below for you. Other than that, thanks for watching, Exile, and I'll see you in the next video or live stream.